The operating room was chaos. A military K9 lay bleeding on the table, snapping at every hand that tried to save him. Experienced handlers shouted commands in 3 languages. Nothing worked. The head surgeon reached for a blue-cap syringe. Euthanasia protocol. Then a voice cut through the noise. Quiet. Certain. A low-ranking SEAL rookie no one had noticed. He knelt beside the dying dog and whispered something into his ear. 2 words, a code, and everything changed. From which city in the world are you watching this video today? If stories like this move you, consider subscribing. What happened next left everyone in that room speechless. The emergency bay doors of the field hospital slammed open at 2:47 in the morning. Desert winds swept through the corridor as a stretcher rushed past rows of sleeping wounded. But it was not carrying a soldier. On the blood-soaked gurney lay a Belgian Malinois, his tactical vest torn and saturated with crimson. Shrapnel wounds peppered his flank. His eyes were wild, darting, full of something deeper than pain. Fear lived there, and rage. The medics wheeled him into the operating room, where harsh fluorescent lights turned the blood black under their glare. Dr. Castellano, the head surgeon, snapped on gloves and moved toward the animal. The dog's name was Havoc. Everyone on base knew him. 14 confirmed IED detections in 6 months. More lives saved than half the infantry units rotating through Kandahar. He was not just a military asset. He was a legend, but legends bleed too. Castellano reached for the IV line. Havoc's head snapped around, teeth bared. A low growl vibrated through the room like a warning siren. The doctor pulled back. 2 medics moved in from the sides. Havoc twisted on the table, snarling, legs kicking despite the pain. One medic grabbed for his foreleg. Havoc lunged. Teeth caught fabric, tore. The medic stumbled backward, clutching his sleeve. Sergeant Derwin entered the room. He was a handler with 20 years of experience, a man who had worked with dogs in 3 war zones. His face was weathered like old leather, his voice deep and commanding. He stepped up to the table and locked eyes with Havoc. The dog knew him. They had run drills together, shared meals. But recognition did not bring calm. Derwin spoke in German, his tone firm but not harsh. Commands that should have triggered instant obedience. Havoc did not respond. Derwin switched to Dutch, then English. Nothing. The dog's breathing was ragged, his chest heaving. Blood dripped onto the floor in steady rhythm. Alarms on the monitors began to beep, heart rate spiking, blood pressure falling. Castellano moved closer with a syringe. Sedation. The fastest way to stabilize the situation. But Havoc saw it coming. He jerked his leg away, and with his teeth, he tore the IV line clean out of his own foreleg. Tubing whipped across the table. Saline splattered the wall. The medics froze. This was not panic. This was refusal. In the corner of the room, barely visible through the chaos, stood a figure no one had noticed. Petty Officer, 2nd Class Merrick Lorne. He was young, mid-20s, lean, and still. His desert fatigues were dusty, boots caked with sand. He leaned against the wall near the door, arms crossed loosely over his chest. His eyes were locked on Havoc. He did not move. He did not speak. He simply watched. Major Ventura entered the room like a storm system. He was the base commander, a man whose presence demanded immediate attention. His buzz cut was silver at the temples, his jaw set in a permanent line of authority. He carried a tablet under one arm and scanned the room with sharp, assessing eyes. Those eyes passed over Lorne without stopping. A petty officer 2nd class was background noise in a room full of senior personnel. Ventura's voice cut through the commotion. He wanted a status report. Castellano gave it to him in clipped clinical terms. Unstable vitals, uncooperative patient, rejection of all standard intervention protocols. If they forced sedation at this stage, the stress could trigger cardiac arrest. Ventura's expression darkened. He reminded everyone in the room that this K9 had saved more lives than most of the soldiers on base. Failure was not an option. Derwin tried again. He approached slowly, speaking in a low, soothing tone. Havoc's ears flattened against his skull. The growl deepened. Derwin extended a hand. Havoc snapped. The handler jerked back, narrowly avoiding teeth. Frustration bled into his voice as he turned to Castellano. 20 years. He had never seen a dog behave like this. Something was wrong beyond the physical wounds. Ventura demanded answers. Who was Havoc's last handler? Derwin hesitated before answering. Classified deployment, records sealed above his clearance level. Ventura's jaw tightened. He wanted those records unsealed. He wanted a name. He wanted control of a situation that was spiraling. Then he left, his boots echoing down the hallway. The room settled into tense rhythm. Medics moved carefully, keeping distance. Havoc panted on the table, his body trembling. Blood continued to seep from the shrapnel wounds. The monitors beeped in irregular patterns. Time was running out. A younger handler named Corporal Ames stepped forward. He was eager, still carrying the optimism of someone who had not seen enough to lose it. He told Derwin he had worked with Havoc during desert operations the previous year. Derwin's response was quiet but firm. Running drills was not the same as bonding, but Ames insisted. It was better than nothing. He knelt beside the table, spoke softly in German, calm words, gentle tone. Havoc's ears twitched. For a brief moment it seemed possible. The tension in the room shifted. Hope flickered. Then Havoc's eyes narrowed. The growl returned, low and guttural and final. Ames backed away, his confidence shaken. Castellano's patience expired. He turned to a nearby medic and gave an order that made everyone go still. Prep euthanasia protocol. Derwin started to protest, but Castellano cut him off. The dog was suffering. Forcing him to endure more when he refused treatment was cruelty. The cleanest option was to end it quickly. A medic retrieved a syringe with a blue cap. Everyone in the room recognized it. Lorne's hand, resting against his forearm, tightened into a fist. His jaw clenched, but he did not move, did not speak. Castellano approached the table. Havoc tried to stand. His legs buckled. He fell, tried again. Blood pooled beneath him, dark and spreading. His breathing was labored, each exhale a struggle. Derwin's voice was thick as he spoke, an apology. To a dog who could not understand words but who understood tone, understood betrayal. Castellano knelt beside Havoc. The syringe gleamed under the lights. Lorne took one step forward. Derwin's head snapped toward him. His voice was sharp. "Stand down, petty officer." Lorne froze mid-step. Derwin reminded him this was not his call, not his place. Lorne's eyes met Derwin's. There was something in that gaze, something unspoken, something heavy. Lorne's voice was low and steady when he finally spoke. "He is not ready." Castellano looked up from the table, confusion crossing his face. Lorne repeated himself. "He is not ready to die." Castellano asked how he could possibly know that. Lorne did not answer. Derwin's frustration spilled over. Lorne had been on base for 6 hours. He did not know this dog. Lorne's response was quiet, simple. "I know him." The room went silent. Even the monitors seemed to pause. Castellano stared. Derwin stared. Lorne stood there, arms at his sides, expression unreadable. Castellano pointed out the obvious. Lorne was a petty officer second class. He did not have clearance to be in this room, let alone make decisions about a high-value military asset. Lorne said it again. "I know him." His voice did not rise, did not waver. But the certainty in it stopped Castellano from moving. Derwin asked the question everyone was thinking. How? Lorne looked at Havoc. Havoc's eyes, half closed and fading, found Lorne's. For the first time since entering the room, the dog stopped panting. His body went still. Recognition flickered across his face like a light turning on in a dark room. Lorne asked for permission to try, to talk to him. Derwin's skepticism was audible. They had been talking to Havoc for 20 minutes. Commands in 3 languages, nothing worked. Lorne's response was calm. "Not like I will." Castellano and Derwin exchanged a glance. The syringe hovered in Castellano's hand. 30 seconds. That was all Lorne would get. He nodded, stepped forward, slowly, hands visible, palms open. Havoc's ears twitched. The growl softened but did not disappear. Lorne knelt beside the table, close, closer than anyone else had dared. Havoc bared his teeth. Lorne did not flinch. He whispered 2 words. "Easy, brother." Havoc's eyes locked onto him. The growl faded. Lorne leaned in, his face inches from Havoc's ear. The room held its breath. And then, so quietly that only the dog could hear, Lorne spoke. If you have ever witnessed a moment where trust was the only thing standing between life and death, share that story below. And if you want to see how this ends, stay with us. The words Lorne whispered were two. Tango 4. Home. The change was immediate. Havoc's entire body shifted. The tension that had coiled his muscles like springs released all at once. His head lowered. His breathing slowed, deepened, steadied. The wild look in his eyes softened. He did not look away from Lorne. His gaze held, fixed, certain, as if he had been waiting for this moment since the doors burst open. Lorne's hand moved slowly to Havoc's neck. His palm rested there, warm against fur matted with blood and dust. Havoc leaned into the touch. A small movement, but unmistakable. The growl was gone. The resistance was gone. What remained was trust. Castellano stared. His hand still held the syringe, but it hung useless now. He whispered a question to the room. What the hell just happened? Lorne did not turn, did not break contact with Havoc. His voice was quiet when he spoke. You can work now. Castellano hesitated, then moved in, slowly, carefully. He reached for Havoc's foreleg. The dog did not react. The IV slid in without resistance. No snarl, no snap. The monitors began to stabilize, heart rate dropping, blood pressure leveling. The medics moved in like a choreographed team, their hands quick and efficient. Sutures, gauze, antibiotics. Havoc stayed perfectly still. His eyes never left Lorne. Derwin stood back, watching. His face was unreadable, but his eyes were sharp. He studied Lorne the way a man studies a puzzle he cannot quite solve. Finally, he spoke. What did you say to him? Lorne did not answer. Derwin tried again. Who are you? Lorne's response was simple. His handler. Derwin shook his head. His last handler is classified. Lorne met his gaze. I know. The silence stretched. Derwin's expression shifted. Understanding began to creep in, slow and cold. Helmand Province, 2023. Lorne's jaw tightened. He did not confirm, did not deny. But his silence was answer enough. Derwin stepped back. His voice was firm when he addressed the room. Everyone not essential to this surgery, out, now. The junior medics filed through the doors. Corporal Ames lingered, confusion written across his face. But Derwin's look sent him moving. Only 3 remained. Castellano, Derwin, Lorne. As Castellano worked, Derwin pulled out a tablet. His fingers moved across the screen, accessing files most personnel would never see. His face changed as he read. The lines around his mouth deepened. His eyes narrowed. He scrolled, read more, then looked up at Lorne. Operation Phantom Sparrow, March 2023. Joint DevGru SAS Operation, Helmand Province. Derwin spoke the words like he was reading from a eulogy. 4-man team, 1 K9. Insertion went smooth. Exfil went to hell. Lorne's hand tightened on Havoc's neck, just slightly, enough to notice. Derwin continued. Ambush 17 clicks from extraction, 2 KIA. 1 handler separated from the team. Castellano glanced up from his work. Separated, how? Derwin's answer was flat. Pinned down by enemy fire. Team had to pull back. Handler and K9 were left behind. Castellano's hands paused. For how long? 16 hours. The words hung in the air like smoke. Castellano resumed suturing, but his movements were slower now, deliberate. Derwin kept reading. Records say they survived 3 enemy patrols, a sandstorm, and crossed a known minefield before secondary extraction. His eyes lifted from the screen. And the handler? Derwin's voice dropped. Name redacted. Entire file classified above my clearance. He looked at Lorne's sleeve. The patch was faded, nearly invisible under layers of dust and wear. But the insignia was still there if you knew what to look for. SEAL Team 4. Derwin did not ask. He stated. After the op, Havoc was reassigned to explosive detection. Handler was sent stateside. Medical leave. They were separated. Castellano finished the last suture and straightened. And the code? What does it mean? Lorne was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was controlled, measured. It means, I have got you. No matter what. Derwin leaned against the wall. Why that phrase? Lorne's eyes stayed on Havoc. During the ambush, I was hit. Shoulder, bleeding bad. Could not move without giving away our position. The words came slowly, like he was pulling them from somewhere deep. Enemy patrol passed within 10 meters. Havoc wanted to attack, trained to protect. But if he moved, we both die. So you gave him the code. Lorne nodded. I told him. Tango 4, home, and he stayed. Silent, still. Even when I was bleeding, even when they were right there. Castellano stepped back from the table, stripping off his gloves. He trusted you. Lorne's response was barely audible. I told him if I ever said those words again, it meant no matter how bad things looked, he could trust me, that I would get him home. And you did. Derwin's voice was softer now, until they separated us. Lorne's voice cracked, just barely, enough to hear the fracture beneath. I did not know where they sent him, tried to find out, could not get clearance, figured he moved on. Derwin shook his head. Dogs do not move on. Lorne looked at Havoc. The dog's eyes were half closed now, sedated but aware, still fixed on Lorne. Neither do handlers. The surgery was finished. Havoc was stable. His breathing was even, his vitals strong. Castellano announced it quietly. He is going to make it. Lorne nodded. His hand stayed on Havoc's side. The doors opened. Major Ventura entered with 2 senior officers flanking him. His expression was stone. I want a full debrief. Now. Derwin started to speak, but Ventura cut him off. I just watched a petty officer second class override my medical staff, bypass protocol, and save a high-value asset using a classified method. I want answers. Derwin stepped forward. He was Havoc's handler, sir. Helmand. Operation Phantom Sparrow, classified joint op. He and the dog survived an ambush that killed 2 SEALs. 16 hours behind enemy lines. They were separated after extraction. Ventura's eyes shifted to Lorne. Is this true? Lorne met his gaze, nodded once. Why did you not identify yourself when you arrived on base? Lorne's answer was direct. Was not asked, sir. Ventura's jaw worked. You stood there and let us almost put that dog down. Lorne did not flinch. I gave him a choice. He was not going to listen to anyone else. Only me. What was the phrase you used? Lorne's response was immediate. Classified, sir. Ventura's voice hardened. I am ordering you to tell me. Lorne stood his ground. With respect, Major, that code belongs to him and me, no one else. The room held its breath. Ventura stared at Lorne, then at Havoc, then back. Slowly, something shifted in his expression. He stepped back, understood. Then Ventura did something no one expected. He came to attention and saluted. Thank you, Petty Officer Lorne. Lorne hesitated, then rose to his feet, returned the salute. Derwin and Castellano followed. The moment held, suspended in the fluorescent glare. Then Ventura lowered his hand. He is yours. For as long as he needs you. Ventura turned to leave, then paused. And Lorne, sir, welcome back. Ventura walked out. The 2 officers followed. The door closed behind them. Lorne stood there, still at attention. Havoc's tail twitched once against the table. Lorne looked down at him. The dog's eyes were steady, unwavering. Castellano gathered his instruments. Derwin powered down the tablet. Neither spoke. The silence was not uncomfortable. It was reverent, like standing in a space where something sacred had just occurred. Lorne knelt beside the recovery cage as they moved Havoc into it. His hand rested on the bars. Havoc shifted closer, pressing his shoulder against the metal where Lorne's palm rested. The contact was small, but it was everything. Derwin paused at the door. He looked back at them, then left without a word. The operating room was empty now, just Lorne and Havoc. The monitors beeped softly, the lights hummed. Outside, the desert wind rattled the windows. Inside, 2 survivors sat in silence, one hand on the bars, one body pressed close. A promise kept in the only language that mattered. If you have ever kept a promise that cost you everything, we would be honored to hear your story. And if you want to see what happens when loyalty is finally rewarded, stay with us. The hours passed in stillness. Lorne sat on the floor beside the recovery cage, his back against the wall, his hand resting on the bars. Havoc lay inside, sedated but stable. His breathing was slow and even. Every few minutes, his eyes would open halfway, find Lorne, and close again. The rhythm repeated like a heartbeat. Present, reassured, safe. Lorne did not sleep. He watched the monitors, listened to the steady beep of Havoc's pulse. Outside, the base began to wake. Voices echoed in distant corridors. Boots marched across gravel. Helicopters lifted off in the pre-dawn darkness. Life continued. But in this room, time had stopped. Lorne whispered to Havoc in the silence. "You did good, brother. Real good." His voice was rough, worn down by exhaustion and emotion. "I know you were scared. I know you did not understand why I was not there." He paused, took a breath. "I tried to find you, every day, pulled every string I had. They said you were reassigned, classified. I could not get through." His voice cracked. "But I am here now, and I am not going anywhere. Not this time." Havoc's tail twitched once, a small movement, but Lorne felt it like an answer. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The medical equipment blinked in the darkness. Lorne's thoughts drifted back to Helmand, to sand and heat, and the smell of cordite, to the moment when everything went wrong. He remembered the radio call. Exfil compromised. Enemy contact. He remembered Derwin's voice crackling through static. Fall back now. He remembered the choice that was not really a choice. Leave the injured handler and the K9, or lose the entire team. They made the right call. Lorne knew that, had always known it, but knowing did not make the 16 hours any easier, did not make the silence any less crushing, did not make the darkness any less absolute. He leaned his head back against the wall, closed his eyes. For the first time in 16 months, the weight on his chest eased, just a little, just enough to breathe. Morning light spilled through the hospital windows. Lorne woke to find Havoc watching him. The dog's eyes were clear now, focused. His tail wagged slowly inside the cage, tired but certain. Lorne smiled. It was small, genuine, earned through survival and loss and reunion. The door opened quietly. Derwin entered carrying a folded blanket, a bottle of water, and a file folder. He saw them and stopped, did not speak, did not interrupt. He set the items down on a nearby table. Then he noticed the folder in his hand. He hesitated, placed it beside the blanket. On the tab, in neat block letters, it read, "Lorne Merrick. Transfer request." Derwin glanced at Lorne one more time, nodded once, a gesture of respect, of understanding, then left without a word. Lorne stood slowly, joint stiff from sitting on the floor all night. He picked up the water, drank half the bottle, then noticed the folder. He picked it up, opened it. His eyes scanned the document inside. Request approved. Permanent assignment to FOB Kandahar, effective immediately. Authorized to remain with military working dog Havoc for duration of recovery and subsequent operations. His expression did not change, but his hand tightened on the paper. The military did not do this, did not bend protocol, did not rewrite assignments for sentiment, but someone had made it happen. Ventura, probably. Or maybe Derwin had pushed it through channels Lorne did not even know existed. Havoc shifted in the cage. His tail wagged harder. Lorne looked at him. "Looks like we are staying, brother." Havoc's tail beat against the floor of the cage. Steady, strong. The days that followed fell into rhythm. Lorne stayed with Havoc through every stage of recovery, changed bandages, monitored vitals, walked him slowly around the yard when Castellano cleared him for movement. The base personnel watched. Word spread quickly in places like this. Yet the story grew with each telling. The dying K9, the silent seal, the code that saved a life. People Lorne had never met nodded to him in the mess hall. Handlers asked questions he did not answer. Junior enlisted looked at him differently, not with awe, with something quieter. Recognition, the kind that came from understanding sacrifice without needing the details. Lorne ignored most of it, focused on Havoc, on rebuilding what had been broken, Not just the dog's body, but the trust that separation had tested. Every morning, he woke before dawn, sat beside the cage, spoke quietly, reminded Havoc that he was there, that he was staying, that the promise still held. 1 week later, the training yard was quiet in the late afternoon sun. Havoc walked beside Lorne, slow and careful, but strong. The stitches were healing cleanly. The limp was almost gone. He moved with purpose, his head up, his ears alert. No leash, no commands, just proximity, just presence. Derwin watched from a distance, arms crossed. Corporal Ames approached him, curiosity written across his face. "He is really staying?" Derwin nodded. "Permanent transfer. Approved this morning." Ames tilted his head. "And Havoc?" Derwin's response was simple. "Reassigned to Lorne, officially." Ames watched them. Havoc stopped, sniffed the ground. Lorne waited patiently, hands loose at his sides. Ames frowned. "I do not get it. What makes him so special?" Derwin was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of experience. "Some bonds are not built in training, Corporal. They are forged in survival. That dog did not refuse treatment because he was scared of dying." Ames looked at him. "Then why?" "Because he was waiting for someone who promised to bring him home." Derwin's gaze stayed on Lorne and Havoc. And promises like that do not expire. Ames stood there, processing, watching the way Havoc moved in sync with Lorne, the way Lorne's hand dropped to rest on Havoc's shoulder without thinking, the way they existed together like two parts of the same whole. He thought about his own training, the drills, the repetition, the commands shouted across fields until muscle memory took over. That was bonding. Or so he had thought. But this was different. This was something the academy could not teach. This was loyalty tested by fire and separation and silence. This was trust rebuilt one quiet moment at a time. Ames nodded slowly, walked away with a new understanding settling in his chest. Derwin remained. He had seen a lot in 20 years. Handlers come and go. Dogs retire or die or get reassigned. The work continued. The mission never stopped. But this was different. This was something the manuals did not cover. This was loyalty that survived separation, trauma, and silence. This was a bond the military could use but never truly own. He watched Lorne kneel beside Havoc, watched the careful way he checked the healing wounds, the gentle touch, the whispered words. Derwin had trained hundreds of handlers, worked with dozens of dogs, but he had never seen anything like this. Lorne knelt beside Havoc in the center of the yard. He checked the stitches gently, his fingers careful and practiced. Looking good. Havoc licked his hand. Lorne smiled again. That same small, earned smile. "Yeah, me too." He stood. Havoc followed. They walked toward the barracks together, side by side. Not handler and asset, not soldier and weapon, just two survivors who had found their way back to each other. The sun dipped lower, the training yard emptied. Somewhere in the distance, a helicopter touched down. Orders were shouted, missions continued. But Lorne and Havoc moved through it all like they existed in a different timeline, one where the noise did not matter, one where the only thing that counted was the presence of the other. They reached the barracks. Lorne opened the door. Havoc walked through first. Lorne followed. Inside, the space was simple. A bunk, a locker, a small desk. Havoc circled once and lay down beside the bunk. Lorne sat on the edge of the mattress, leaned forward, rested his hand on Havoc's back. "You know what the hardest part was?" Lorne's voice was quiet. Havoc's ears perked up. Not the ambush, not the 16 hours. It was the 342 days after. When I did not know where you were, did not know if you were okay, did not know if you remembered. Havoc shifted closer, pressed his weight against Lorne's leg. Lorne's hand tightened in the fur. "But you did. You remembered, and you waited." His voice broke. "Thank you for waiting." The room was silent except for the sound of their breathing. Synchronized, steady. Two rhythms that had found each other again. Lorne thought about the nights he had lain awake stateside, staring at ceiling fans that reminded him of helicopter blades, listening to silence that felt wrong after months of combat. He had tried to move forward, attended debriefings, completed physical therapy, returned to active duty. But something had been missing. Someone had been missing. He had submitted request after request, asked every officer who would listen, contacted handlers at other bases, searched databases he probably should not have accessed. All of it led nowhere. Havoc's records were sealed, his location classified. The door was closed until it was not, until orders came through reassigning him to Kandahar, until he walked into that operating room and saw Havoc on the table, bleeding, fighting, waiting. Outside, the base settled into evening routine. Lights flickered on across the compound, voices faded, the desert cooled. Inside the barracks, Lorne lay back on the bunk. Havoc rested his head on his paws, eyes half closed, but still watching, still present. Lorne spoke into the quiet. I made you a promise. Tango 4, home. I did not know if I could keep it, but I meant it, every word. Havoc's tail thumped once against the floor. Lorne closed his eyes. And I will keep meaning it, every day, for as long as you need me. The next morning, Lorne and Havoc walked the perimeter of the base. It was routine now, expected. Other handlers nodded as they passed. Soldiers stopped to watch. Word had spread. The story of the dog who refused treatment and the SEAL who spoke the only words that mattered. It had become legend in the way military stories do, passed from unit to unit, embellished slightly. But the core remained true. Lorne did not speak about it, did not confirm or deny the details. He just walked. Havoc just walked beside him. That was enough. They passed the motor pool, the armory, the command building. Each step was familiar now, each turn deliberate. Havoc's gait had improved. The strength was returning to his legs. The wounds were closing. But more than that, something else was healing, something deeper than tissue and bone. Major Ventura saw them from the command building. He stood at the window, coffee in hand, watching. His adjutant approached with a report. Ventura waved him off. Not now. The adjutant followed his gaze. Understood. Left quietly. Ventura watched Lorne and Havoc disappear around the corner of a building. He took a sip of coffee, shook his head slightly. Some things could not be explained in briefings. Some bonds defied regulation. Some promises mattered more than rank. He turned back to his desk. The transfer approval sat there, already signed and filed. But beside it was another document, a commendation, for actions above and beyond, for loyalty that transcended duty. Ventura picked up his pen, signed it, sealed it. It would go into Lorne's file, quiet recognition for something that could never be fully recognized. He thought about his own years of service, the men he had commanded, the decisions he had made. War created strange necessities, forced impossible choices. But every now and then, it also revealed something pure, something that reminded him why any of this mattered. The sun set over Kandahar. The base grew quiet. Lorne sat outside the barracks, back against the wall. Havoc lay beside him, head resting on Lorne's leg. The desert sky turned orange, then pink, then deep purple. Stars began to appear, distant and cold and constant. Lorne's hand rested on Havoc's back. He did not speak, did not need to. Havoc's breathing was steady. His body was relaxed. The tension that had defined him in that operating room was gone, replaced by something quieter, something deeper. Trust. Lorne looked at the sky, thought about the ambush, the blood, the silence, the 16 hours when survival was measured in heartbeats. He thought about the separation, the months of not knowing, the weight of a promise he could not keep. Until now. He looked down at Havoc. The dog's eyes were closed. His chest rose and fell in perfect rhythm. Lorne whispered into the twilight, "We made it, brother. We actually made it." Havoc's tail wagged once, slow, certain. They sat there as the stars grew brighter. Around them, the base continued its endless cycle. Patrols went out. Patrols came back. Helicopters lifted off and landed. Missions were briefed and executed. The machinery of war turned without pause. But in this small space, against this wall, two survivors existed outside of it all. They had paid their dues, survived their trial, found each other again against impossible odds. The night deepened. The temperature dropped. Lorne pulled the blanket Derwin had left around his shoulders. Havoc pressed closer, sharing warmth. They did not move, did not need to. This moment was enough. This presence was everything. Two survivors, two halves of a whole, a promise kept, a bond unbroken. Some things are not written in records. Some debts are not paid in medals. Some bonds are forged in fire and sealed in silence. And some promises once made echo forever. They survive separation and silence and time. They wait in the dark until the moment comes to be kept. And when that moment arrives, they become the only thing that matters. If this story reminded you of the power of loyalty and the weight of promises kept, we would be grateful if you shared it. And if you believe some bonds are worth honoring, consider joining us for more stories like this. Because the world needs to remember that some things are stronger than rank, protocol, or time. Some things are simply unbreakable.